Hey everyone, welcome back to Miriam Pinder Portraits. So today I thought I would do a little drawing just to show you how I get a really realistic, shiny, glossy looking dog's eye. I get a lot of questions over on my Instagram on how I do it, so I think, if it brings me joy doing it, then I have to share it. So yeah, I'm going to be going through step by step how I draw this cute little Frenchie's eyes. This is just a photo off the website Unsplash, so I'll be putting it in the video and also putting a link below so that you can download like a high resolution version. Unsplash is like a copyright free place for loads of great photos. So yeah, perfect for reference photos for when you're drawing. So let's get into it. So I've started off here. I've already done the outline. So the reason I've not put that in is because I kind of feel like it's your own personal choice how you want to draw the outline. You can use a grid system, you can do it freehand, you can just kind of, draw and measure as you go to make sure it's all in the right places. You can trace if that's what you're more comfortable with. It's entirely up to you. So I've left that bit out so that you can just kind of choose your own way. I used to use the grid system when I first started. I found that was really, really helpful. Now I kind of just do a rough kind of freehand and then measure it a few times just to make sure it's all right. So I'm going to go ahead now and pick the colours. So for around the eyes, we've got some blacks and greys and browns. So I've got Payne's grey, warm grey. These are just the polychromos ones first. I've actually got 3 different warm greys. I've got I always have these 3 for my portraits. So I've got warm grey 1, warm grey 2, and warm grey 5, and Payne's grey, and also dark sepia, nougat brown. Now it doesn't matter if you don't have all of these are just simply the ones that I'm using. You can just use as close to the ones that you have. And I also want a kind of warmish brown, so maybe like a burnt umber. Okay, I'll also use ivory, a white of course, for the highlights mainly. So we're going to go on to the white of the eye now, which, as you can see from the reference, there is some pinks in there. So the white of the eye is never actually white. It's generally like got greys and blues, and it's never really white. I think the lightest colours tend to be on the highlights. So that's another way of getting them looking a bit more realistic. So I'm going to be using beige red and cinnamon, also Venetian red for the darker pinks. That should probably do it. And then we want, so we've already got the greys there. There's also some blues, quite vibrant blues actually, in the white, probably, yeah, and in the highlights as well, which is probably reflecting off the sky maybe. That's why you'll often see these blues in highlights, if they are. It's just all to do with what's reflecting really. I'm also gonna, I might actually use them, which are luminance. Okay, and now for the actual brown of the eye. So I've got, let's see, raw umber, brown ochre, walnut brown, black of course. I actually think that's it. Cool, so I'm just gonna make sure these are all nice and sharp, so I will speed through that bit because yeah, you don't need to see that. So they're all sharp, and like I said, you don't need to have all of these pencils. I will probably do another video using fewer pencils. Like, as you can imagine, I didn't used to have such a vast collection of pencils when I first started. They kind of have just accumulated as I've been, doing portrait commissions. I've just been able to expand my collection because of course they are a little bit pricey, but definitely worth it. And I mean, you can make like so many different colors just through layering different colors on top of each other. You don't need to have like every shade, every color. For an example, you could have like a lighter gray and a little bit of black to make a darker gray. You could, yeah, that's just a random example, but I'll probably do a video on, you know, just using a really few amount of pencils. That will probably be helpful for anyone that kind of just have the basic colors, because it is doable, of course. So I will also link where I buy all my pencils and all my art supplies. I used to buy everything off Amazon, but I feel like sometimes they just didn't always arrive in perfect condition, and the amount of plastic and stuff that tended to be in the packaging was, yeah, just too much for someone like me that's ordering all the time. So I actually will leave the link to the shop where I buy all my art supplies from. And yeah, I love that they come packaged like really eco-friendly, and yeah, just with loads of care taken in it. I'm definitely someone that absolutely loves something that's packaged well, and looks like, you know, has had a lot of care put into it. And also just the range and quality of products, they've just got everything that any kind of beginner to professional artist could ever possibly need. So I will link that below. And also you'll have noticed that I popped these little pencil lengtheners, if that's what they're called. I think that's what they're called, onto these that are just really, really short. So they're so handy. You can get a lot more life out of your pencils that way. I literally use them until there is nothing left, which is possible when you have them. So they're really, really handy. So without further ado, let's get into it. Also have a sharpener nearby and eraser, and yeah, that's it. So I'm going to start on this side. I may do a part 2 video because it's probably going to be very long for the second eye. So I'm just going to start here by blocking in the kind of darker areas, only lightly. We're only trying to go lightly here, kind of just over where the original pencil lines were. So I'm just using the warm grey 5 for this. So any bits that are like this where I'm kind of just filling stuff in, I will speed up, and then you can like pause the video or whatever, just so that it's not a super duper duper long video. So the secret to a really, really glossy eye is a good highlight. Highlights are so important. So you really want to make sure that you've got it really clean. Like just outline it really nicely. And then that should give you a really, really nice effect. Okay, so now I'm going to try and erase the graphite pencil lines. For anyone wondering what paper I use as well, this is Fabriano watercolor, is it 5 series, I think it's called. It's the hot pressed watercolor paper. So that's my fave. So you can see when you do this, the graphite kind of disappears if you've drawn it lightly enough. So that's quite important as well. You do want to draw the outline as lightly as possible. And then you can just go over it with your colour pencil. Okay, so I'm going to start now by actually popping in some of the highlights already. So up here where I put this little, now you can go quite hard on this because that bit there is going to stay pretty much white, and then here's the other part of the highlight, so we're just going to go straight in with the white. Sorry, I've just noticed that the table's rocking the camera, so I'm hoping that's a bit better. And I'm also just going to outline here as well in the white. Now, I know I said that the white of the eye is never really white, however, we can layer some more over it afterwards. This is just the thing when you use white, a nice sharp white polychromos down first, it kind of covers that area and you can't really get more pencil over it if you go a little bit hard on it. So it kind of keeps it nice and crisp, if that makes sense. So I go quite lightly around here because I know that I'm going to be adding different colours. Okay, so that's that. I'm now going to go in with warm grey 1, and just really lightly start building that shadow on the white. So even though this isn't white, when it's next to some really dark colours, you'll see it's still really, really light and it really stands out still. So I'm just going to press quite hard here. There's a little white patch, tiny little white patch there, whiter. And now I'm going to go in with the pinks. So again, just really lightly building up. Ever so slight pinky hue here as well. Tiny bit. Actually going to go in with a little bit of brown now, so the nougat brown. Now you want to go really, really, really gently here because it is a lot more pigmented, of course, than those really light colours we've been using. It's just to get that kind of, those little browny bits. If you're ever unsure of kind of the pressure that you need to go, and you don't want to just go ahead and like ruin your drawing if you're unsure, it's always really good to just have a little scrap piece of paper with you as well. That can be really helpful, that you can practice on. You can also practice like mixing colours. If you haven't got the exact colour pencil, then you can kind of just do some little practices, so that's really handy as well. So again, just building like a kind of little shadowy browny hue that's around here. I'm now going to use warm grey again, which is warm grey 2, so it's slightly darker than that first one that we used. And just going in more with that shadow. So really the trick is just to look closely, you know, and pick out any colours that you see and just layering them on. So it's probably a lot easier than you would think to get a really impressive looking realistic eye. It just takes a bit of practice, a bit of patience. Any kind of like lines or little squiggles you see. Now we're going to go in with my cinnamon. Just add in some more of these little pink bits, little kind of bloodshotty little bits. And you can see there where I went quite hard with the white, it leaves a little kind of highlight, which is really helpful. So any bits that look kind of light, of course, that is just an indication just to go with less pressure, and then any bits that look quite dark, then just put a tiny bit more pressure. And when it's nice and sharp as well, your pencils, you don't really need to kind of press too hard to get a really nice level of detail. Okay, so I'm now going to go in with Warm Grey again, Warm Grey 5. This is the same one that I used on the outline. So just darkening any of those little shadowy bits. Okay, there's actually also a tiny little bit of blue just here. It's a little bit greeny actually, so just really super lightly. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to go in now. We can kind of add more if we need to when we're filling in the dark bits. So I'm going to start now with, let's see what bit's really light. So I'm going to go in with the Warm Grey 2. And as you can see here, so around the eye looks quite black, but then there's this lighter bit. So just go ahead and fill that in. And any kind of light looking bits that you see. So this is just the base layer. We are going to be adding much more layers here. So you don't have to kind of be too precise with it. As you can see from the reflection, you can actually see a person. It's obviously taking the photo. So you'll often find that with dog's eyes reflections, it's whatever the dog's looking at that you can see. So I'm going to go in with my, I might actually use dark sepia. So any bits that look kind of black, you can go in with this first, just so that you can outline it first and then go in with the black. So this is really just to kind of block out any bits, just so that we really know what we're doing with it all. We can go a lot darker towards the end. And don't worry too much about the picture being absolutely the same as what you can see in the reflection, because even if it just looks kind of like it, it can still look really, really good and really realistic. Okay, I'm also just gonna now outline here as well. Okay, so I'm going to go in now with I'm going to fill out the kind of lighter bits. So going into my warm grey one again. And you can go put kind of medium pressure here. And then I'm also just going to put hard pressure of the white then just over it on the outer side, the outer edge. You can see it kind of ombres from darker to lighter. And then I'm going to go in with the slightly darker one grey 2 towards the other end, so it gives a real kind of ombre tonal effect. And then you can kind of just do another light layer of this warm grey 2 pretty much all over, at least anywhere where it's relatively light. Now I'm just going to fill this in, the darker part, using the dark sepia. So this looks like it's the person, the figure. It looks like that anyway. Yeah, it's gotta be a person. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in with that nougat brown again. And just anywhere that you can see kind of those lightish browny patches, that's where you can go in now. So I tend to build up from light to dark. I feel like that works really well. Okay, now I'm going to go in with my black. So really important that this is super sharp, because this is what is going to give it that real lifelike look. It's got to be crisp. The darkest parts and the lightest parts are the most important bit. So the darkest darks and the highlights, they are what makes a portrait look realistic. So you just want to go in and make sure you're doing a really nice clean line. Take your time if you need to. So now you just want to fill in where you can see that dark bit, kind of making the shape. So as you can see here, I'm actually going really lightly because it's not like really crisp black. It's kind of, yeah, it's a lot softer and it's kind of blended in with the brown. So you just want to do it really soft in little, kind of little cloudy round, yeah, just like soft strokes. I'm actually going to go ahead and just add in a little bit, like a little soft layer around the eye as well, because it can really help to. So I've got my pencil to the edge slightly tilted, and that just helps to go extra light. The more you go like that, the more you can get a fine point, whereas when you're just blending, you just want to go really lightly on the side. So I'm just gonna go a little bit firmer just around the eye, a little bit. Now this kind of all just helps it look a bit more, makes it pop out a bit more. So this is really just shading. I mean, I'm only kind of doing this eye study for the video, so as long as it kind of just looks like it's fading out, and then you just got it going darker and more detailed towards the eye. It's really just to make the eye look more finished when we're done. Okay, so back with the black. I'm just going to outline here the outside of the eye. So I can actually see an ever so slight little lighter line. So before I go really hard here, I'm actually just gonna go in with a lighter grey. Just do a little line, so that's just gonna show as a little divide between the eyelid and the eyeball. It's really tiny, but anything a little like that does make a difference. Okay, so I'm gonna do the brown bits of the eye now. Probably go in with some walnut brown. Again, with it on its side, kind of medium pressure. I'm gonna go back in with that black again and fill in that tiny bit there. And here as well, but lightly. So you're really just building up any kind of dark bits that you see and just layering them. Now this highlight here is not done yet, by the way. We're going to be adding some blue to that after. So dark sepia again. Sepia, whatever you want to call it. There's like a little dark middle bit here. So just putting a kind of light layer over everything. Well, not everything, but the kind of darker bits. Go in with some more nougat. So I feel like on some bits, this is basically the last layer. So any bits that look particularly brown to you, you can go quite hard. Okay, I feel like that is pretty much there. We just need some more, maybe grey. Okay, and now I'm gonna, pretty much happy with that. I'm gonna go in with this quite hard, and then I'm gonna go over the really black bits and make sure they're super, super black and crisp. So you want to do this relatively hard. This is gonna give you that really nice glazed over effect. Okay. Might add some browns after, but let's just go in with the black first. I'm just going to sharpen this ever so slightly. It's still pretty sharp, but we want it super duper sharp for best results. Now, this is why a really good paper is very important, because to be able to layer, you need your paper to be able to handle it, basically, because some papers definitely are weaker than others. And you know, that's the whole fun of it, is adding all of these layers. So you definitely want a paper that allows you to do that. So just filling out any little shapes that you can see that need to be a little bit darker to make them stand out. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm just going to add in some blue, maybe like a greeny blue first. I'm also going to use warm grey 1 to go lightly over this highlight. I know we went over it originally in white, so it's just going to give it a little bit of off-whiteness. which will just make it more realistic. And then you want to go over it with blue so lightly, like as light as you possibly can. So you don't want any marks there because it's a highlight. It wants to be really, really smooth. You're just simply adding a tiny bit of colour to it. And then you just want to outline it as well. Make sure it's really crisp. Okay, so it's just not quite brown enough yet, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more brown. So as you can see, it's just layers, layers, layers. That's all there is to it. So it does take patience, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that at the moment. Maybe just back in with this sepia. So you can tell yourself, you know, just keep going over the bits and you can decide, actually that bit needs a bit of this or that bit needs a bit of that. So I'm going to go in with the nougat and just go around this bit again. Just get some more shadow in there. It's all looking a bit white. And also Venetian red. Just to get some of those little bloodshot looking bits. And it needs to be shadowed towards the top because it, as you can see, there is actually a shadow there, so it shouldn't just be kind of crisp white. So I'm using warm grey 2 for that, especially here. It's much, much darker. So all these little tiny little things that you usually wouldn't notice unless you're drawing it, but it just all adds to the realistic effect at the end. So anywhere you see shadows, just go ahead and fill some more in. So I'm just making this edge a little bit crisper. Now at this stage it really is just about you looking at yours, because it depends, you know, what bits you need to go over. So you will be the best judge of that. And like I said before, the blacker the black bits and then against the light highlights, that is the most important thing. So hopefully you can see yours really coming to life now. And I hope it's been an enjoyable however long hour or so. I actually thought it'd be quicker. I think when I'm doing it without videoing it, I am quicker, but because I'm trying to think extra hard about what I'm doing so I can explain it properly, I'm not very good at multitasking, you see. So I think it's definitely taken me longer than it normally would. So I'm just going to go over this bit and just crisp up that white on the very edge. Well, it's not white, but it's lighter than the rest of it. And then feel like this bit here needs a little bit more green, greeny blue, tiny little bit. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Now it's up to you how much more you fill out. I'm just gonna do a little bit around the edge just to make it pop a bit more. So yeah, if you want to, I'll film part 2 on the other eye. So if you don't want to miss that, then make sure that you've subscribed and click the bell so that you know when I've uploaded the second part to this video. And if you really liked this video, then amazing, I'm so glad. And let me know if there's anything that you would love to see me do or do a lesson on. Pop it in the comments below, and please give me a thumbs up as well if you did like this, so it helps to get to other people that want to do drawings like this, and especially during such times like lockdown where everyone is bored out of their minds. It's nice to get a new hobby or to improve our skills at something. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in part 2.